Welcome to Sessions with Dolly. This is episode 4, where we'll be discussing how to draw actionable insights from your survey. So this is also part of our Sessions with Dolly training and mentorship offering. So let's get on it. So the first step that we're going to do is to download your data. So to download your data, you will need to firstly open your Google form, and that is that form that you use to write questions to collect your data. So the responses section, which is this one, it also shows you how many responses you have without even having to download your data. So this is essential for monitoring purposes, so that you can make decisions whether to push or market your survey a bit more. So you can access that once you click on responses. So the next step that we'll be doing is once you are here on responses, then you will click on the ellipses here. These are the three dots there. You'll click on that, and then once you click on that, then this will happen. So you get here where you see a page. I think it's called a page. I don't know what it's called, but you'll find this, and then it will give you different options, get email notification and whatever. But what we want is to download our data. So you come here where it says download responses. So it already shows that your data will be in CSV format. So CSV is short for comma separated values, meaning that your data is separated by commas, which when you're analyzing, you'd have to transform it so that your data is separated in columns. So if you're interested in knowing how to transform CSV data, I'll include a description in the link. So that's it for downloading your data, and next we'll be discussing how step 1, which is data exploration stage. So the first part in our data analysis is data exploration. So with data exploration, what we're trying to do is just to explore your data and get to understand it before you actually do analyze it. And so this involves checking for missing data and doing your data quality checks. So I think I found it easier to just filter the data before using it. So you just come here to filter, and then it will do these things here. So that allows you to filter by any values that you want. For instance, if you wanted to just look at, like, when you're exploring your data just by females, you can then do that. So this is just data for females. So this allows you to check for, you see, like, maybe, like I mentioned, missing values such as this. So you'd want to understand, like, okay, why do we have missing values here? So these are things that you want to actually do, and it's easier to do in Excel. And if you have very your data set is small, because when you have a larger data set, I think there are more extensive software for you to do that. But for this session, we'll just be focusing on Excel. Yeah. So the other thing is, when you see a lot of maybe empty cells, you'd want to actually look at, okay, why do we have empty cells? And in doing that, you have to know your survey very well. So this question here, it talks about what grade are you in. So remember, our survey was in school. It's a school-based survey, but within the school we not only have students, we also have, for instance, librarians, teachers. So a question like a grade, they wouldn't necessarily answer that grade. And if you saw in our last session, we had a skip logic for this. So if you were a student, you'd have to answer the questions related to grade, but if you were maybe a teacher, then you'd skip that and go on to the next one. So you then have to actually perform a quality check here to see if you have maybe any caretakers that have answered a grade, just so that you can see you have quality data. So yeah, let's do that. And if you have your students and you know that you wanted this question asked by everyone, then you want to see that there are no missing values, and you can easily use here. It will appear blank. There will be blanks here if there was a missing value. So yeah, I think that's what you essentially do in this stage of data exploration. You're just checking to see how your data is and how it's been answered, and just to get to know your data very well. And another way to actually explore your data more is to perform your frequency distributions, and this just gives you an explanation of what your data is. So that's also a part of the data analysis, but even before you get there, you'd want to maybe clean your data. So a data, especially where people filled in things for themselves, for instance, this row here of the question 3.3 that says, what do you usually eat during breakfast? So a question like this, a lot of people would have answered questions differently. As you can see, you have many responses here. Some are similar, some might be the same thing but written in a different way, because they would be writing that themselves. So you need to actually look at that and clean it out a bit as you see necessary. And also this one's here, you'd have to look at. So essentially you want to simplify your analysis. So that's where the data cleaning comes in. So this is just the exploration stage, and then the next one will go into data cleaning. So our second step is the data cleaning step, and there's an easier way to actually clean your data. And for this session, we'll just be focusing on the column L. And as I said previously, with this one, you have to make sure that you've cleaned it up a bit, because this is where people actually entered their own fruits or their own items here, so the spellings might be off. For example, with this one, you can tell that somebody was trying to say apple, but then they misplaced it. And so that's what data cleaning is about, is trying to keep things constant. If maybe one is in, like, let's say this one was a small letter and everything else is in capital letter, so you want to make that constant, so that it's clean, so that when you analyze it, you don't struggle. So we're still going to use the filter here. We're gonna use this filter to clean our data. So just go, as you can see, let's just deselect that, and as you can see, we have different types of apples here. For this example, this you might come across even if you're doing your own survey of people maybe naming something differently. And this happens if somebody fills out a survey very quickly. Sometimes you can type something and it doesn't come out how you anticipate it to come out. So for this example, we would then click on all the apples, then you click OK. So the easier thing to do is just make sure that your row here, since you filtered this, appears as the last one here, because sometimes it then hides. So what you do is you can copy this apple, press copy, then you just paste it there, and then after pasting, let me just delete that here. So after pasting it, you make sure that you come to the end of it here. So as you can see, there's a plus that appears there. So once the plus appears, you can then hold and drag everything until the bottom. So in that way, it changes all the entries into, I don't know, it's apple spelled like that. Yeah. So again, you'll do the same with the others. Okay, I think banana, there's nothing wrong with there. Let's see, you could say sandwich. Then you unclick here, and then you will click all the sandwiches that you find. Okay, so with the sandwich, you can also see that somebody here might have thought it's written like a witch. So here you kind of do the same thing with that one. You just copy and paste it on the first one. Just show you here, and then once you've done that, you come here on the corner, and then the plus sign will appear. So the other, I'm not sure if this is gonna work with this WPS software, but with Excel, even when the plus appears, you can just double click. Oh yeah, it works. So you see double clicking, so you don't have to drag. So double clicking helps, especially if you have a lot of entries. You don't want to be dragging for too long, so just double clicking, it will fill it all up for you. Let's try another one. So you could be Zimbas and Zimbas. So here is actually through your discretion and how you know things to be, because you can choose either. So with Zimbas, it will be Zimbas or Zimba. In Lesotho, like any snack, I think that like your chips, they're still called Zimbas. So when somebody chooses that, then okay, it's part of this criteria. So you kind of need to understand the context also. So here, because this one is the last one, you can double click and make sure that it actually went to the bottom. So normally this happens when you have everything is filled up. So let me make for like an example. Let's say this row 120, let's say row 120 was empty. So when the plus sign appears and you double click, it will only come until here. So this only kind of works when you don't have any empty cells. So yeah, you just need to check for those things. But because we know that this was not empty, we can just then track it down again. So I don't know if you know, but there's something called, they call it mascopus here on this side. So that's also like a snack. I don't know how to describe it. Maybe I'll find a picture and show you. So that, because I know, like, okay, we understood and people understand that to be Zimbas. So like I said, with Zimbas, people, they see it as, it's part of Zimbas. But here I think you can keep it like that since 3 people chose it. And also because remember, the survey is for Tabo, so he's trying to use this information also to see what he can stock up to at his tuck shop. So understanding the different types of snacks that people eat will also be helpful for him. So you can keep it like this, so you don't necessarily always have to combine things. So sometimes at your discretion you can combine similar things when you are analyzing. But if you're gonna make decisions, like in Tabo's case of, okay, can I buy different types of snacks, then you want to know how many people love this particular snack. So we can just keep it like that. Let's see which ones. So and then we have biscuit and biscuits here. So yeah, essentially you just do the same thing. I just like tracking things, because I think you'll never know if this software, if it hangs somewhere in the middle and it doesn't go down. So I think for me, as a quality assurance step, again, I track them until I know that, okay, they've come to the end. And here, as you can see, I have this yellow line. So I normally just highlight the line at the end of my data, just to make sure that I never cross it while I'm tracking. It helps so that I know, because once you track maybe to the bottom of this, then by mistake, then your data it might overestimate the number of responses that you have. So that's also something to look forward to. So yeah, I think this is fine for now, and for this part of the session. So yeah, this is how you can conduct your data cleaning. So here also it does require some cleaning, but I think I'll do that on the side, because I'll still be doing the same thing here. And with this question, one might ask, why wouldn't I do a data cleaning on this? But if you saw the last session, this is actually a multi-response question, so the respondents actually had to choose more than one response. So as we go along in this session, especially when we're analyzing the data, we'll go into how, so this data, in spite of how it looks, it's actually clean. And in the beginning, we talked about your CSV and what it means. So CSV data, it's similar to this type of data that appears here. So this one is separated by a semicolon, not a comma. But yeah, so this data, in spite of how it looks, it's clean. It's very clean because they just chose what they needed to choose. But we'll go into that in the analysis. So this was step 2, which is data cleaning. So step 3 that we're going to be talking about is doing data summaries, frequency distributions. So in season 1, we did actually an introduction to basic Excel analysis. So we touched a lot on doing these types of calculations. So in this session, we won't go into too much detail on that, but just a few elements pertaining to what we are actually discussing. But if you are interested and you want to actually dig deeper into that, you can watch some of those episodes in season 1, just to get an understanding of how you're going to do that. So frequency distribution is just the frequencies of your data. For instance, how many were male, how many were female. So in this session, we'll just be discussing, I think we'll do two examples of that. But like I said, if you want to really focus on that, you can just go to some of the videos of season 1, and you can actually learn a lot more on that. So we want to see in this data how many were females, how many were male. So yeah, let's do that. So there's a function called the COUNTIF function. It will count the number of your specified item value, and it will count how many times it then appears. So let's see an example called COUNTIF. So you double click that, and then for the range, you have to actually highlight your range until where it ends. But if you know your range, I mean, as we saw, our data starts from a column AO, so you can just type that so that you don't track for a very long time. But like I said, I don't know, I just love tracking, that's all. It just gives me peace of mind to know that I have tracked and included every piece of item, and then the yellow line helps me to know where to stop. So after that, you can look at your calculation here, because with some Excels you find out that there's a semicolon here other than a comma, so you can just write what your software or your computer. I don't know if it differentiates between computers or why sometimes it becomes different, but just look at what yours requires and just type that out. So mine, as you can see, it's a comma, so I just write comma. So for criteria, you have to write, we're looking for female, so you could just type out female here, and it's already written in brackets, so you don't have to include a bracket and then press enter. However, it gives you a 0, and that will be impossible because you can already see, like, okay, we do have female, so why is it typing a 0? There's an element when you're using softwares like Excel where when you stipulate the value that you want, you have to put it inside your, like this, and then as you can see, it will say, okay, you have 99 females, and we can also do the same for males. Calls count F. So as I mentioned, you don't have to track. You could just say, okay, A2, because we saw our data starts from the second row, and then it will be 2 A200. It will show you here where it will end. Then you put a comma and then inverted commas, and you'll type in your mail and close that up. So you'd have 99 females and 98 males. So let's see what would happen if maybe you used a small letter M. So there's really no change. However, you have to make sure that you're typing it in how it's written here, because in some softwares, when you don't type it exactly how it appears, it doesn't read it. So this is just a simple frequency distribution of your data. Then for all the others, you can just do the same. Use the COUNTIF function. There's also another way, a quicker way to actually do your summaries, especially if you're gonna do all the summaries. You don't want to be typing out things for a very long time. So in that brings us to something called pivot tables, and again in season 1 we really touched on that a lot, so you can just go back and see, but I'm just gonna quickly show you how we do pivot tables here. So for me, the pivot table, you can actually do a pivot table, maybe let's say here. You click on an empty cell, you go to insert pivot table, so you have to select a range. So the range is the data that you want to include, so you just take all your data, then go down that's why then the yellow line is important. So here you can choose either new or an existing worksheet, but it's already chosen an existing worksheet because if you remember, I clicked on an empty cell somewhere here, so the pivot table will definitely be here. So you can say okay, and that will happen. But I honestly don't like using the same sheet that my data appears in for analysis, I normally just open a new sheet where I can work on, and I'll show you why. So yes, let's just do that step again. You're going to say pivot table, so you'll then highlight your data again, and then so here you'll choose the new worksheet. So then it will open a new worksheet for you, which is here, and I'll show you why in a minute. So yeah, you can still use what we were using. We want the gender distribution, so you could hold and drag your gender under rows. It will appear. So we have 3 options here. As you can see that people have answered, some specified that they were female, some specified that they were male, but others prefer not to answer. And what you can actually do is use that same field, which is your data, and drag it under values, so it will calculate to you the same. So this is also another way to verify whether your calculations are correct, but this is a quicker way. So as you can see, it still matches. We have females, we have males. So this one, it's easier to do because you could just say, okay, you have gender here, and then you can copy this, and then where's the pasting? Yeah, I'm still trying to learn. I think paste. Yeah, okay. You paste that, so it will still be the same thing, but then you can change, like you can remove your field and then do, let's say, a row now. And once you do the row, then you can see, other than typing out like student, librarian, and all of that tedious work of using functions, like pivot table actually summarizes things for you quicker. So as you can see, we have a lot of respondents which are students, but we also have librarians, we have teachers, we have caretakers that Tabo actually spoke with. So you can just copy paste and replace all of this now as you're doing your summaries, and the summaries will help you to identify. So remember, Tabo he was writing a proposal. Now the principal allowed him to collect data, so now he wants to give the principal results. So he's gonna use this data, and especially with this data summaries, after understanding, like, okay, all of your like most of your respondents are students, and there really isn't a difference between the males and the female respondents. So I think that's what we want. We don't want bias there, and we understand, like, okay, in a school there definitely have to be more students than there are like your teachers. So if you wanna delve deeper into that, the pivot table allows you to look at to really disaggregate by your different fields to know, okay, among this maybe librarians, how many are females, how many are like males. I don't know if that will matter in this type of survey, but in understanding what he actually wants his survey to entail, then he gets to make decisions of what to include in his analysis, what is he has to present to the principal. Anyway, let me show you why I always prefer writing like doing my pivot table in another sheet. Okay, so sometimes when you click on the corner here, it's easier. Is the easiest way. I think I'm a track queen. I love tracking, but sometimes if you have a lot of your data has a lot of entries, your data has a lot of columns, it might be tedious and you can make mistakes. So if you click on the corner here, it highlights your data, then you can choose pivot table. So that works because then even if maybe let's say it's an ongoing survey, and as you continue to collect your data, you want the data to automatically update so that you don't have to keep on tracking. So doing it like this, it's actually an easy method. So let's see. So you can do that. However, remember we have, let's do the same thing again. You track your gender and the rows, you track your gender and the values, but you see this has actually increased. Let's say, yeah, even the male, it's increased because we actually did calculations here. So everything now that appears under the yellow line is being taken into consideration here, because what we did was to highlight our whole data, so that, as I was explaining, if it was a live data where it was automatically updating, then it could be useful to already just refresh your data. So doing calculations within the same sheet as your data can cause like those discrepancies and errors within your data, like this one. So you just need to note that for quality assurance, your analysis, you do it in a separate sheet. So let's just delete that, and then I'll show you in an instance. So then you can go back now, and when you want to update your sheet, you'll just come in and it will update it. So this is helpful if, like I was saying, your data keeps on automatically updating. So let's just do maybe a duplication here of our data. Let's duplicate this and just assume that our data is live, and we got responses after maybe a while after we've done like our summaries. So then you would, we just pasted that here, and so you don't want to be doing like that whole insert pivot table again within your data. So this type of method of highlighting is helpful, because what you can just do is just refresh your data. So every time you come in, you refresh it, and as you can see, it's refreshed. And now I forgot where let's see, I think it was this one. So I'll just do let's see, I think it's this one. So let me just delete that. So yes, so this is just an example of running your data summaries, frequency summaries. I think just now we might discuss just cross tabulations using your pivot table, but like I did say, if you want to learn more about like pivot tables, you can go and watch season 1, because we talked a lot about that here. So yeah, let's just take a break for now, and we'll come back and discuss cross tabulations.